Good morning, everyone. This is Brett Lewis from L4 Group, and I have with me Steve Ohl, who's the president of RFO. And the topic today is, well, first off, let me frame this with, it is the morning of Christmas Eve. So I figured the topic would be talking about HVAC emergency no heat calls during off hours. Given that we're entering the holiday season, some families might unfortunately wake up on Christmas morning and find themselves with no heat, or New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and we're going to talk about what they can do in those situations. So first off, Steve, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, thanks. So before we get into some of the questions, why don't you just give everybody a little bit of background about what RFO is and what you guys do?
Sure. RFO is actually coming up on our 31st year this year and this coming year, and we do heating oil and propane delivery to homes, businesses, industrial complexes. We are we also deliver on and off-road diesel fuel and kerosene, and we have a full-service HVAC installation and service department. And we also have a hearth and patio showroom where you can purchase fireplaces and space heaters in propane, natural gas, wood pellets, and we also have things like outdoor fire pits and retractable awnings and patio furniture. Um, it's a little bit about who we are. Uh, we're we're based on customer service. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves in, and that you actually get to talk to a live human being. So that's always important.
Awesome, awesome. So and that ties directly into what we're going to be talking about. So let's first start off with um, consumers that have oil as their main fuel source. Can you give our viewers advice on what they should do if they run out of heating oil and the outside temperatures are really low, cold, and they run the risk of maybe frozen pipes or whatnot. But what are things that consumers can do when they run out of heating oil?
Well, a little bit of prevention is always good, so I'll give that advice first. And I'm thinking in terms of heating oil and propane. I know your question was mainly about oil, but is
Sure.
it, I always advise customers that are asking about switching from one company to another, um, you know, use the same advice you would do when you're hiring a contractor or a carpenter. Check out your potential, fuel vendor or propane vendor. Great idea is to call them either before their hours that are open or after the hours they close, and see if you can actually talk to a live person. That's going to be so important during an emergency because if you can't get a hold of a live person, your quest stops there. So, I always recommend that people call and see if a live person actually answers the phone, or if they'll get it, if they can actually get a response. Um, so that's very important. The other thing is try and get on an automatic delivery plan with your fuel company, for your heating oil deliveries. The other thing is if you are, insistent on being on a will call basis, make sure you call at a quarter of a tank of fuel, and or if you're ordering online, order, with plenty of time, because usually you'll need a couple days to, get that delivery scheduled. And typically at a quarter of a tank, you probably have, 10 days to 2 weeks worth of heating oil in the tank. Um, but to get back to your question, if you run out of heating oil, if you have knowledge of what to do, you can go to a filling station, a gas station, and pick up some kerosene or diesel fuel, and that can be dumped into your heating oil tank, and then you can start the furnace or boiler from there. But you really have to be shown how to do that. It's not something you're just going to know how to do, and so I would advise against that unless you have actually been shown by an expert or a technician on how to do that. The other thing you can do is call a service company, an HVAC service company, Sometimes they will actually have cans in their vehicles of diesel fuel or kerosene that they can get you going until your heating oil company can come by and top your tank off. Now, typically with the RFO, the response time is pretty quick. If you're out of product, and our technicians will typically carry enough fuel or kerosene to get your system functioning and going until we can get a delivery truck to you. If you happen to thought, oh, I'm out of fuel, or my heating system isn't working, but you're actually out of fuel. I mean, we run into that often, where people really don't check their tanks and they think their heating system's broke, but the reality is they're out of fuel. So that's basically what you would have to do.
Yeah, awesome. And back to running out to the gas station to get some diesel, in a container. I mean, also, you have to have a special container to carry that, don't you? I mean, you can't just stick it in a gas can that you would use for your lawnmower, right?
Yeah, you would definitely not want to do that. They do make diesel fuel cans and kerosene cans, and they're typically color-coded. I believe blue is kerosene and yellow is diesel fuel. And you would never want to put diesel fuel or kerosene into a gas can because it would have residual vapors in there. So you would definitely not want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not not just a simple thing to run up and pick up some diesel if you ran out of heating oil. It's like you said, you only want to do that if you really know what you're doing.
Correct. Yes.
So. All right, awesome. So now, not everybody heats their home with oil or propane. There's a lot of people that have natural gas. So in those situations, if they find themselves, with no heat, what kind of advice can you give them?
With natural gas, there have been instances in the past where when demand was so high that they had to interrupt service to certain areas. Now, typically that'll happen with businesses first, or large industrial places like hospitals or schools, where they can switch from natural gas to another fuel, whether it be heating oil or propane. That there isn't much you can do if you happen to be on the interruptible basis. When you're out of natural gas, you're out. Unlike heating oil or propane, you're storing heating oil and propane on your home location, so you're kind of in control of that. But if you do have an issue with a system that's not functioning with natural gas, the best advice I can give you is to call your HVAC technician and have them take a look at it. We get calls for natural gas systems, and we go out and service them, and it's typically not an error where they're out of natural gas. It's that there's a system breakdown or malfunction of some type. So yeah, you definitely don't want to try monkeying around with that yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part of that too, I guess, would be to make sure that you're having your heating system serviced on an annual basis, right?
Yeah, that's it's good you mentioned that. That's a common thing years ago. I used to hear that when we first started selling propane. Some of the technicians that would install the systems were typically just installers. They didn't really want to be bothered with coming around and doing annual maintenance. So they would tell the customer, oh, you don't have to worry about it. Call it. Only call us if it breaks down. Well, that's like saying, here's your new car, just drive it till it quits. So, there is maintenance and things that are involved with natural gas and propane systems. We even run into that in the hearth and patios with fireplaces and space heaters. There was, when the building boom was going on and they were just throwing up, houses left and right, and they were installing these fireplaces and heaters. That was the advice that they were given, because the companies installing them didn't have time to go back and service, and they didn't really want to invest in technicians to learn how to service the equipment. So they would just tell their customers, just don't worry about it until it quits. Well, fast forward 8-10 years of not doing any maintenance, and a lot of times those units cannot be salvaged anymore because things have gone so wrong with them. It's very important. And in RFO, we do offer service agreements and service plans for for any heating appliance, whether it runs on natural gas, propane, heating oil, kerosene, just give us a call. We can offer you a service plan on just about anything.
Awesome. And I'll comment on the fireplace thing. I'm one of those guys. I've been in my house, I guess 10 years, give or take, and I've got a natural gas fireplace that I kind of ignored. I mean, just never really thought about having it serviced. And this past year, you guys actually came out and did the service on it. And in addition to it, I'm sure burning cleaner and a little more efficient. I mean, they cleaned up the glass, on the front of it. It just looks better, and it just you kind of forget about it because it's that natural gas fireplace. You kind of think, oh, I don't really need to have it serviced, but I can tell you, it made a big difference.
Yeah, and it typically only takes less than an hour.
Yep.
Well, most of them, some have complicated glass fronts that are a little more intricate to remove, but typically, a fireplace is less than an hour, and a boiler or a furnace, if it's routinely maintenance, every year, usually less than an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. So it's not a big time, to schedule your time. It's obviously everybody's time is important, but the heating system breaking down in the middle of winter, then you're really out of time, and then you're spending a whole day home from work waiting for somebody to show up. So yeah, it's much better to plan your maintenance.
Exactly. So now, in the event that someone does find themselves with no heat, they might be tempted, especially if it's really cold out, they might be tempted to turn on the stove to, create some extra heat to stay warm, or utilize space heaters as long as they have, electricity, or they have a space heater that operates without electricity. But can you give our viewers some safety tips on things that they really should be aware of so that they don't burn the house down, or they don't suffer carbon monoxide poisoning?
Yeah, the big one you just said is carbon monoxide poisoning. I mean, you can see a fire if it's happening, but you can't see carbon monoxide. So, make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector that functions without electricity. Maybe you have one that runs on electric, and you have a backup battery one somewhere. But that's really a big factor when you're doing space heating, or any home, even if it's just a safety feature. They're not that expensive. I would just make sure you add one, because any home should have a carbon monoxide detector. You never know where the source could be coming from, even if you don't have a fossil fuel heated house.
Exactly.
A kitchen stove, you can run a kitchen stove, the top burners, or the oven. Typically, now you wouldn't want to have it hanging open because of issues, somebody getting burned. But I mean, if you're cooking with that stove, use it in the same fashion. If you're going to make a turkey in the oven, you're going to run that for an hour or two probably, and you're going to cook on the top stove for 20 minutes at a time maybe. So as long as you're using that stove in the same fashion and you're not trying to heat your entire house with it all day long, it probably shouldn't cause any issues during short intervals where you're without heat or power. That's the big thing. The other thing is, space heaters, make sure you follow the manufacturer's guidelines, particularly with fire hazards, replacing them too close to curtains, because a lot of these little electric space heaters, they can get pretty hot. So just make sure you follow the guidelines on the manufacturer's instructions. And the other thing is, you could have your propane company, or call a propane company that does installations. I know, like RFO, we install quite a bit of emergency backup space heaters, and they're not really that expensive, and you have a backup source that can be easily started and keep your house nice and cozy while the rest of the neighborhood's waiting for the power to come on, or even if your system breaks down. It's happened to me already. Even you do regular maintenance, and there's going to be that fluke breakdown of a mechanical piece, and you just go over and turn on the propane backup heater, and your house is nice and toasty till the technician shows up and repairs it. So those are some of the things that you can do.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for taking time out of your Christmas Eve. We're kicking off the day early, but thanks for taking time out to do this interview. And I wish you guys a Merry Christmas, and I'll talk to you again soon.
All right, same to you. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Bye.